Would you believe me if I told you that Darwin used to sound like this?
Ready. Ready for what?
Yeah, crazy, right? But what if I told you that this used to be Richard's original character design? Those are just some of the many changes made to Gumball, and they only get more crazy as the video goes on. So let's kick things off by breaking down every animation style the show has experimented with. From 2D to 3D, puppets, and even anime, Gumball has done it all. And we're diving into every single one. But first, we need to talk about the show's original animation style, starting all the way back on May 9th, 2008, in the pilot, where it didn't shy off from using different animation styles. You had Gumball, who was 2D, Darwin, who was 3D, and other characters like Tina and Rocky, who were CGI, all mixed together and tied perfectly into a real-world setting, based on real buildings, like Elmore Junior High, Elmore Mall, and even the Wattersons' house are based off of real buildings with some slight changes. One by one, each piece is put together. Photos, models, lighting, textures, all carefully layered to build what we know as the world of Gumball. The way they fit 2D in 3D is so impressive. I've always loved the realistic backgrounds. They were so fun to just see the animated characters run around them. From season 1 to 3, we see subtle changes to the main characters, like Darwin, who we saw before as 3D, had now turns 2D, and Gumball, who originally had oval pupils and thinner outlines, now had a cleaner and more consistent design with his round pupils and bolder lines, with Anais, Nicole, and Richard all following suit, shifting from slightly more detailed or uneven features to a smoother, more polished style that made the Wattersons feel more consistent in their designs. But that's not even the best part, as we start moving into different animation styles, some that completely change how you view Gumball, starting off with 2D, except this isn't your usual 2D animation. In the episode The Kids, Gumball and Darwin accidentally roast their own parents, calling them old. She then leaves, warning them, saying that no one stays young forever. At first, they don't take it seriously, as they have been 12 for like ever, but then out of nowhere their voices break and affect their every move, from getting kicked out of the bus, kicked out of the store, and my boy Gumball couldn't even speak to Penny.
Fitzgerald residence.
Hey, can I speak to Penny, please?
Is this a joke? No. This better be a joke.
So the boys head to the doctor, who tells them the truth. They're just growing up. So they decide to go into a full song about the benefits of being young.
We enjoy it while we can. We enjoy it while we're kids. We enjoy it while there's still time to make the most of it. We go around the block and we loiter by the mall. The people think we're thugs, so they give the cops a call. Police get away with it because it's a public space. Turns out we were loitering, just standing in one place.
But in the mix, we get a more vibrant and stylized use of the 2D animation that was brighter, bouncier, and that captured the fun energy of their imagination. To pull this off, the Cartoon Network team teamed up with the studio CRCR, best known for working with Fortnite and Riot. But this wouldn't be the last time we see this type of animation. In the drama, when Gumball takes Darwin to confront Carrie and her ex, the animation shifts again to a beautiful color palette of bright colors and fast-paced animation, like something you would see in the Spider-Verse, with help from Jonathan Dobb, as a farewell gift to the show. And he went all in. It's a perfect example of how Gumball's animation shifts aren't just for the show, but a way for artists to go wild and bring their own style onto the screen. But there are still so many more from where that came from. We'll see how Gumball uses these different animation styles to tell even crazier stories. And that's no different from the next episode, The Lie. In this episode, Gumball makes up a fake holiday called Sluzzletag to cheer everyone up after Christmas through the January Depression, and the whole town goes all in on it. But later that night, Anais reminds him that it's all fate, and Gumball freaks out, realizing everyone's expecting a toilet Santa to show up with their gifts. He imagines how they'll react if they find out the truth.
It'll be like...
But Anais has a more real outcome.
I think you're being overdramatic. It'll be more like...
Even though it's only for a few seconds, what a better way to show Gumball getting completely squished than turning into him in a literal clay version of himself. It's the only time real claymation shows up, but we do have Clayton, who looks and moves like clay, but is actually CGI, but he still gives off the vibes of classic stop motion, showing how Gumball can nail the feel of different animation styles without actually using them. Except that wouldn't be the only animation style switch that we see in this episode. When Gumball introduces the idea of Sluzzle Tag, Darwin suddenly appears in old school animation, something that most of us were too young to experience firsthand, but it's clearly a nod to the golden age of animation. It's a total throwback to early cartoons like Tom and Jerry or the Looney Tunes. But next, we go into something completely different, a full-on comic-style book episode. In the episode The Comet, everyone at school is glazing Gumball, which he finds out is for Laserheart, a secret superhero made up from none other than Sarah. Of course, Gumball completely falls in love with it, as well as Darwin, who is called the Smooch. They go around acting like heroes and stuff, with nothing going well for them. After they face real danger and realize how they are not heroes, Sarah draws them as if they are heroes in a full-on comic book type style. And we've seen fights in Gumball before, but the little details, the over-the-top moves, and the superhero references like Superman and Batman, it all shows how changing animation styles can totally change how a story is told, or a better lesson to be learned. But what if Gumball took it even further? Not just diving into Gumball or Darwin's imagination, but going absolutely crazy for one insane episode. Well, in the episode The Fury, we see exactly that. Nicole's past catches up with her when her old friend Yuki Yoshida returns to town, demanding a rematch. But Nicole refuses. The kids are confused about why Nicole backed down from the challenge, wondering if it was fear or something else. Because we all know Nicole, and she isn't usually the one to back down from a fight. And when Nicole picks them up, the car is all beaten up with the words coward on the car, with the culprit obviously being Yuki, who keeps messing with her by flirting with Richard, annoying her in her job, and going everywhere she goes to remind her that she's a coward. But despite that, Nicole won't fight back. And in an awesome manga-style backstory, we learn that Nicole and Yuki were once actually best friends. But after Nicole beat her in a martial arts tournament, Nicole had to let it all go. All the while, Yuki has been training for this very moment. And when Yuki threatens her house and job, Nicole has no other choice but to fight her. So in full anime style, Nicole and Yuki go all in on an epic battle. But when their kids finally get caught in the mess, they stop fighting them and team up to save them. Just reading the comments here, and found out that my favorite animation studio, Studio 4C, worked on the episode, and I'm at a loss for words. The huge middle school weeb in me has taken over. Worth the wait. Gumball needs more awesome guest animators. In order to do such a big thing, they got help from Studio 4C, the studio behind standout films like Mind Games, which from the comments, you can tell people definitely love it. Beyond this episode, we still got a bunch of anime references in the show, from Dragon Ball Z to Sailor Moon, and a lot more. It's obvious that Gumball has a lot of real love for anime, and can tell a great story while using it. And while we're getting a bunch of references to popular anime, next we got a complete episode about the internet, that not only gives us some cool animation, but it also perfectly shows us how crazy we are in the internet. Yeah, not you, but we. In the episode The Code, Gumball and Darwin are trying to watch a cat video, but the Wi-Fi's down. Turns out that the Wattersons have been stealing the Robinsons' Wi-Fi for years.
Kids, there's something I have to tell you.
You're not my father?
How did you guess? No, we've just been using Robinson's Wi-Fi for years.
Because they can't get their own. Like, they have such bad credit that they've been using a coin-based fridge. Just imagine that for a second. So the kids recreate the internet, from cardboard streaming to fake reviews, and acting like they're in Elmore Plus in real life. Tired of their own version of the internet, they beg for money or do what they call crowdfund to get their own internet. But Anais tells them to just hack the Robinsons. So Gumball Gumball and Darwin launch into a full cyberspace, breaking firewalls, hiding from antivirus software, and trying to get cookies accepted, which turns out to just be in their heads. And this is what really was happening.
How do you do, good sir? The antivirus!
Although it was all in their heads, we get a cool look into them diving into the cyberspace. The switch to computer graphics made the digital world feel real, with 3D models, pixelated environments, which pulled them deeper into the virtual realm. And we also got references to real-life tech, like incognito mode, firewalls, and antivirus software. While this could easily be labeled with the next animation shift, I think it fits more into the computer graphics category, because next, if you love video games, this next episode is for you. In the console, Richard gives Gumball a cheap knockoff game console called the Game Child for his birthday that Richard ended up finding in the Awesome Store. But when Gumball turns it on, it sucks the entire town into a video game. And so, in a pixel art animation, Gumball, with Darwin and Anais, battles a flower monster, which actually turns out to be Leslie, transformed by fertilizer from the Awesome Store. They knock him out and move on. They loot the Robinsons' house, grabbing a VHS player and cash, all while making fun of the fact on how they can't do anything because they're NPCs. But that teardrop from Mr. Robinson's tears say otherwise. They then encounter Penny, who is possessed by a cell phone. Gumball avoids a fight with Penny, but accidentally knocks her out with the VHS player and gives the phone to Gumball for his quest. Then Gumball gets stuck on a pigeon side quest for Allison, earning the No Life trophy. They grind enemies to level up while heading to the Awesome Store, eventually getting dragged into a final boss fight against the Game Child itself. And with the help of characters like Banana Joe, Nicole, and Richard, they defeat the final boss. Just when it seems over, Gumball, dissatisfied with only 89% completion, starts a new game, sending them back to square one.
What do you mean 89%? Do you want to start a new game?
With the pixel art animation, we see the entire town of Elmore into a fully playable RPG world, with completable side quests, boss fights, and even a bunch of Elmore characters joining the final battle. And in other episodes like The Words, we get a whole fight that's a clear reference to Street Fighter, with a VS screen and ego bars instead of health bars. And while it's a crazy episode all taking place in a video game, the next episodes take it even further, with an entire episode set in a fully puppet-themed world. In the episode The Puppets, Gumball and Darwin are cleaning out old toys for a garage sale when they stumble upon some old friends, Frank, Howdy, and Grady. While Gumball's ready to toss them, Darwin gets a little too attached, like weirdly attached. He starts talking through them, making promises and refusing to take them off. Though it turns out this wasn't really Darwin, and the puppets were using him like some kind of vessel and pulled him into a creepy puppet world. So Gumball puts on the last puppet, Grady, and heads in to save him. But in a wild plot twist, Grady betrays Gumball and traps him too. This is until Darwin finds a loose string and pulls it, giving them a chance to escape, topping it off with a dramatic explosion, of course. To make such an episode, we had Blank Industries, who are best known for Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, with the creators Rebecca Solon and Joseph Pelling helping write the episode. Not only did we get a full episode, we also got a mini-series I just found out about called Waiting for Gumball. Imagine Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, just way less dark. Having both Gumball and Darwin as puppets, while also following the three puppet antagonists from before, it's like a small series that gives Gumball the chance to truly imagine the world in a different view. Just another example of how Gumball uses different animation styles to its advantage. But for our next animation style, we go back to 3D, except for a whole trippy scene of Gumball's imagination. In the episode The Transformation, Penny asks Gumball to come over and help with a personal family issue, after an embarrassing moment of him accidentally losing his clothes after a failed entrance to the backyard. Now, wearing a spare Santa costume costume, Gumball joins the Fitzgeralds at the dinner table, where they argue about Penny and her shell. Penny's father, Patrick, wants Penny back in her shell, claiming it's embarrassing and traditional, while Penny argues it only brought her shame and she's happier without it, but they demand that Gumball settles the debate, which he stalls by telling never-ending stories, from armor-wearing kingdoms, butterfly cocoons, and seeds turning into flowers, with each story leading to another story, all while being told in a colorful new world of 3D animation, done by Julian Glanday, who you might know for his works like Tennis Ball on his half-day off, or Boys Go to Jupiter. At first, it feels like a full-on acid trip with wild animation, strange characters, and no clear theme, which, to be fair, is typical Gumball. But when you look at every story, from cocoons to armor to flowers, it's about leaving your comfort zone to grow. Julian's work captures that perfectly. For the last animation style, we have to go to the new series, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, where the animation takes a different twist. Now, we've seen some talented people and what they can make, but we also get a look at the younger talent in Gumball. In the episode The Wrinkle, Anais starts getting wrinkles from all the stress of taking care of her ridiculous family. So to make things easier on herself, she convinces them to follow her book, a plan she made to prevent any future disasters for the next 40 years. First up is Darwin. She puts him through all sorts of dangerous situations to toughen him up, but he comes back just as smiley and adorable as ever, completely unchanged, which only makes Anais more stressed and more wrinkly. Then there's Gumball, who finally talks to a lawyer, and the lawyer just tells him to do nothing, but somehow, even doing nothing, Gumball still manages to cause absolute chaos. And yup, Anais gets more wrinkles. Last are Richard and Nicole. Anais sets them up in this peaceful animal sanctuary so they can finally relax and retire. But it goes all wrong, with the animals getting mad and Nicole and Richard fighting. So in the end, nothing goes according to plan, and Anais just ends up turning into wrinkle mush. But then Gumball, with his usual charm, tells Anais to just embrace the disaster instead of trying to fix everything. Then they go into a full-on song, with hand-drawn doodles everywhere. The animation was professional, but the hand-drawn parts look like they were done by a kid, giving it a fun, messy vibe. It helps show Anais that things don't need to be perfect, and sometimes it's okay to leap headfirst and not worry too much. And altogether, the different animation styles come together, tell a stronger story than just being there for fun. It shows off all of the different types of animation out there, from anime, puppets, and even kids drawings, packed with a ton of references. That's why Gumball is such an insane show. But you know what else is insane? How many changes have been done to my boy Darwin's voice? Look, how does his voice go from sounding like this
Ready for what?
to sounding like this?
After 6 months of physiotherapy and learning how to talk again.
Well, it turns out he's actually had 5 different voice actors, and you probably didn't even notice. So today, we're gonna go through the entire history of Darwin's voice and find out why they've changed voice actors so many times. Starting with Darwin's first voice actor, Jake Pratt, who only voiced Darwin for the pilot episode. The pilot was uploaded to YouTube by the creator of Gumball, Ben Bocquelet, in 2010. However, it was later removed by Cartoon Network for copyright-related reasons, but you can still find it online. In this pilot episode, we can really see how different the show was originally intended to be, especially when it comes to Darwin. In the pilot episode, he appears in 3D instead of the familiar 2D style, and he doesn't sound anything like how he does in the show.
Ready? Ready for what?
We're used to Darwin having that high-pitched, cheerful voice and silly personality, but in the pilot, he sounded like he was dead inside. It just doesn't feel like the Darwin we all know and love. Although Darwin only speaks a few words in the pilot, the difference in his voice compared to the final version is quite noticeable. The reason for this is because he was voiced by the English actor Jake Pratt. Jake is actually the only British actor to ever voice Darwin. Every other voice actor for him is African American, which ended up becoming a part of Darwin's character in the later seasons. I'll dive more into that when we get to this next voice actor. However, Jake should still get credit for helping bring the show to life. That early version was a big deal for the show's pitch, because if the pilot had gotten rejected, we might have never gotten to see the amazing world of Gumball. With all of its unique animation, characters, and humor, I couldn't find anything about Jake Pratt voicing Darwin. However, Nicky Jones, who is best known for voicing Chowder, was the voice for Gumball in the pilot, and speaked about how he was invited to continue to play Gumball, but he ultimately turned down the offer because he would have had to stay in the UK for 8 months. So we can assume that Jake Pratt also intended to play Darwin, but because of something behind the scenes, he turned down the offer. Since the show was greenlit for 6 seasons, they needed someone to voice Darwin. Someone young, funny, and had a great personality. And that's where my boy Kwesi Bocquelet comes in. He took over Jake's role as the voice of Darwin and stayed with the character until season 3, episode 1, titled The Kids. But as the show continued into the later seasons, something pretty natural started to happen. Kwesi's voice began to change. Take a listen to Darwin's voice in season 1.
Lose the power in this fin would bring terrible dishonor upon our dojo.
Compared to his voice at the end of season 2.
How many videos there are on the internet? Here's just a drop of embarrassment in an ocean of shame.
He was first hired to play Darwin while he was a kid, and at the end of season 2, it was obvious that Kwesi was getting older, which was heavily affecting Darwin's portrayal in the show. It was one of those moments where it was clear that change had to happen, even if no one really wanted it. So Kwesi stepped down as the voice of Darwin behind the scenes, and that probably caused a lot of scramble at Cartoon Network. They didn't just need someone who sounded like Darwin, they needed someone who could be Darwin. Someone who could carry that same energy and soul that Kwesi brought to Darwin. And that is no easy task, especially when fans have already fallen in love with his version of the character. But then they were able to find another kid who was just as passionate as Kwesi, that being Terrell Ransom Jr. Terrell picked up right where Casey left off in the episode The Kids, and continued to voice Darwin all the way to season 5, episode 12, The Copycat. But Terrell's journey into voice acting started way before that. From a young age, Terrell has always wanted to be an actor. One of the shows that really lit a spark for him was Hannah Montana. Watching Miley Cyrus go from a regular teenager to a full-blown pop star clearly left an impression on him, because later on, he'd actually credit that show as one of the reasons he got into acting, and eventually got him the role as Darwin. He would also tell his mom that he wanted to pursue acting, and instead of pushing him aside thinking he's crazy and just a kid with a wild imagination, they actually got him an agent and would move to California, where he landed his first big role on Days of Our Lives. That role was a turning point in his career, and helped him understand acting at a very young age. But the real game changer would come when he got cast as Darwin Watterson in The Amazing World of Gumball. What made that role so special for Terrell was that he was already a huge fan of the show, and as a kid, he'd go around doing Darwin's voice for fun, quoting lines and just genuinely loving the character. So when he got the chance to actually become the new voice of Darwin, it must have felt like stepping into a dream. I mean, how many of you have watched a show growing up and thought, I can voice that character? Either way, because he already knew the character so well, the transition was pretty easy. He watched so many episodes and really connected with who Darwin was as a character, making it more than just an acting role. And I think a huge chunk of that can be seen from his performance. Unless you were a hardcore fan, you probably didn't even notice that Darwin's voice was changed. This was his voice before when Kwesi voiced it.
You know how many videos there are on the internet? Here's just a drop of embarrassment in an ocean of shame.
And this was Terrell's voice.
Plus the sentence was, I'm really afraid of your mom.
Especially if you're a kid watching it, you definitely just kept enjoying the show without even realizing that Darwin's voice sounded a little bit different. This doesn't mean that Terrell tried to replace Kwesi. That's something to keep in mind throughout this video. This is just a thing that they don't have control after. Terrell's voice was a little deeper and a bit less high-pitched than Kwesi's, which gave Darwin a slightly older and more mature feel, while still having that quirky energy that made Darwin such a lovable character in the first place. He didn't try to copy Kwesi's version exactly, he respected it, but added his own touch. And it worked. Terrell's performance was a great example of what happens when someone truly connects with the character they're playing. For him, this wasn't just a job, it was a dream come true. However, like Kwesi, Terrell had to also face reality and couldn't play Darwin forever. This is where Darwin's next voice voice actor comes in, Donielle Hansley Jr. He replaced Terrell as the voice of Darwin in season 5, and picked up right where he left off in the episode The Copycats, and went all the way to season 6, episode 10, The Anybody. And speaking of The Copycats, it once again shows just how clever the team behind the amazing world of Gumball really is. Right after Gumball and Darwin confidently declare that they're irreplaceable, they suddenly glitch and their voices shift mid-sentence, going from deep to higher pitched. I couldn't find any interviews where Donielle talked about his time playing Darwin, but there's still a good amount we can piece together about his acting career to give us a look into why he was chosen to play Darwin. Donielle's path into voice acting was shaped by his family roots in the industry, which gave him a head start compared to others. He appeared in shows like CW's Containment and YouTube Red's Step Up High Water. He also voiced the character Peter in The Snowy Day, both in the animated movie and the series, showing he had real talent not just on camera, but behind the mic as well. He eventually got the role as Darwin when Terrell had to step down. When Donielle took over, he brought a fresh perspective while still preserving the heart and humor that the previous actors have given Darwin. One major reason he landed the role was undoubtedly his singing abilities. In the episode The Matchmaker, Darwin sings a heartfelt song about love.
Your smile answers my silent scream. Your photo on the screen.
Showing an emotional but outstanding performance from Donielle. That could have been another reason why Cartoon Network brought in someone new to play Darwin. We all know that the main reasons is that the original actors were naturally getting older, but when it came time to find the perfect person for the role, they were looking for someone with a very specific skill, someone who could sing. And fortunately for them, Donielle fit that role perfectly. However, it still wasn't enough to secure him a long-term spot as Darwin's voice actor. Just one season later, he stepped down after hitting puberty. Noticing a pattern here? Pretty much all of Darwin's voice actors had to step down from the show because they didn't have that youthful voice anymore. As they all grew older, their voices naturally deepened. So once again, Cartoon Network had to find another person to replace Donielle. Despite the odds, they somehow managed to find another perfect fit for the role of Darwin, and that was Christian J. Simon. He's the most recent voice actor for Darwin, starting in season 6, episode 10, The Anybody. He picks up right where Donielle left off, serving as a subtle send-off to Donielle while introducing Christian J. Simon as the new voice of Darwin, which again just showed how great the team behind Gumball are with handling these situations. I couldn't find any interviews with Christian talking about his role as Darwin, though that might be because he's still actively involved with the show, and it's likely returning for season 7 later this year. We do know that Christian has continued to play Darwin after the 6th season ended, playing him in spin-offs like Darwin's Yearbook and the Gumball Chronicles. So for now, we're left to piece together what we can from what's already out there. Christian's journey in the entertainment industry started all the way back in 2016, after he and his family moved to Los Angeles so he could chase his dream of acting. Before voicing Darwin, his voice can also be heard in a bunch of other popular shows, like We Bare Bears, Puppy Dog Pals, and so much more. Among all these actors who have voiced Darwin throughout the years, Christian might be the most successful one overall. He's made a name for himself not just in voice acting, but in live action roles as well. On top of that, he's also a talented singer, something that may have influenced Cartoon Network's casting decision. Since Donielle was a strong vocalist, it makes sense that the showrunners wanted someone who could carry the musical side of Darwin's character, and Christian definitely delivered on that. One example of him showing his singing abilities was in the episode The Silence. His singing in that episode isn't just impressive, it adds real emotion and makes the scene hit even harder.
It's nothing that we ever felt we had to hide. Said nothing lasts forever. I never thought they'd mean us.
Christian J. Simon has really showcased his ability to bring Darwin to life in all of his complexity. He's proven himself to be an ideal choice for the role, and it'll be fun to see how he continues to evolve the character in upcoming episodes, or maybe even the Amazing World of Gumball movie. But come on, we did Darwin. How could we forget the main cat himself, Gumball? And trust me, he has had quite a few changes to his voice too. Over the years, Gumball's voice has changed a lot, starting out super young,
That's not the pizza cutter, that's a DVD! Give me that!
and ending up way older sounding.
Sorry, but it's just advertising 101, man.
And while it might seem just like the case of an actor growing up, the real story is a lot darker than that. So to understand why Gumball's voice doesn't sound like it used to, we have to go back to the show's first episode. Gumball has always sounded young and enthusiastic, but this was especially the case in the first few seasons. And that's all because of his voice actor, Logan Grove. Logan voiced him all the way from the first episode, the DVD, up until season 3, in the episode, The Kids. His performance really brought out Gumball's fun and mischievous personality, but what made it stand out even more was how well he handled the emotional scenes. Whether Gumball was being over-the-top dramatic, being honest, or committing war crimes, Logan's voice always fit the moment, showing why he was picked as the voice of Gumball.
We are responsible for the future generation. We make the children that will become the world of tomorrow.
Logan's standout performance earned him a BTVA Voice Acting Award for the Best Vocal Performance by a Child. He was also nominated for an Annie Award for his work in television production. And while Logan was happy with all the spotlight and joy it was bringing to him, a major issue was slowly developing at the same time. When season 2 came around, Logan's voice had started to change as he hit puberty. In the earlier episodes, his voice had that ideal childlike tone, but as the season went on, the change became more and more obvious, and unfortunately, it was clear that his voice was starting to sound too old for Gumball.
Come on, let's try it again.
We enjoy it while we can!
By the time season 3 started airing, the team was forced to start looking into a replacement for Logan, since his voice really just didn't fit the character anymore. And for that, they needed someone perfect. Someone who could capture everything we loved about Logan's version of Gumball, while also bringing their own unique twist to the character. That's where Gumball's third voice actor comes into play, Jacob Hopkins. And I say third because Gumball actually had another voice actor that voiced the character before Logan did, but he only voiced the character for the unaired pilot, meaning no one ever heard him play Gumball on TV. And since unlike the first actor who played Gumball, the show had to be careful when changing the character's voice, which they did in the most Gumball way possible. In the episode, The Kids, Gumball and Darwin's voices suddenly drop and become super deep, making them realize that they're starting to grow up. They try to brush it off and go about their day, but the new voice ends up causing all kinds of problems. And just when they finally start to accept the change, their voices randomly switch back and they find out they can actually stay kids forever. At first, it sounds awesome, until they realize they're literally gonna be young forever. The episode wraps up with them awkwardly trying to laugh it off, at which point the voices had to be changed for new actors. This episode was a clever way of addressing the fact that Logan and Quasi, the voice actors for Gumball and Darwin, have both gone through puberty, which changed how Gumball and Darwin sounded. Rather than just swapping out the voices behind the scenes, the creators chose to make it a part of the show. They used the episode as a way to introduce the new voice actors while also giving a proper send-off to the originals. Logan and Quasi have been with these characters for a long time, so being replaced probably wasn't the easiest thing to accept. But in this episode, they were able to part ways with their characters in a meaningful way and look ahead to new opportunities in their careers. After that episode, Jacob Hopkins officially became Gumball's new voice actor, voicing him all the way up until season 5, episode 12, The Copycats. Before landing the role of Gumball, Jacob had already been building a solid acting career, with some pretty notable roles at a very young age. One of his first big roles was playing Alexander Drew on HBO's True Blood, where he got to show his skills in a more serious and dramatic role. He also appeared on the sitcom The Goldbergs, playing a character named Chad Kremp in several episodes over a few seasons. And he obviously needed to be a good voice actor for that, since by this point, Gumball was a massive hit. But apart from being a good voice actor, his voice also needed to sound similar to the old Gumball as much as possible. When he took over in season 3, he brought a whole new energy to the character, while keeping his goofy charm and all-around wild personality.
Okay, let's see what's going on in there. Oh my gosh, there's 2 of them, and they're kissing!
His take on the role kept the character just as fun and lovable as ever, and it quickly became one of the parts people best knew him for, especially during his time playing Gumball. Because in interviews, his normal voice sounded exactly like his voice for Gumball. If someone was to meet him in real life and know about Gumball, they would realize that they're basically talking to Gumball. Jacob was pretty much one with the character.
I also like to play lots of sports, taekwondo, spend time with my family, video games, Nintendo, for all those Nintendo fans out there.
For Jacob, playing Gumball was a dream come true, as he watched the show way before he was ever cast for the voice of Gumball, so he knew the character inside and out. He understood Gumball's humor, energy, and personality, which made it super easy for him to take over the role and make it his own. When he did get the part, he said he would pull up an episode of Gumball, mute it, and voice over him as a way to practice. It came very natural for him, almost like he'd been preparing without even realizing. But like many voice actors, Jacob eventually hit that unavoidable moment. His voice started to change, and just like Logan, as he got older, it became harder to match Gumball's younger, high-pitched tone. So once again, the showrunners made the tough decision to recast the role with Nicholas Cantu, and they had to do it once again in the most Gumball way possible, by making it into an episode, of course. In Jacob's final episode, The Copycats, after dealing with their copycats versions, Gumball and Darwin say they're irreplaceable, but mid-sentence they suddenly glitch and their voices change out of nowhere. This wasn't just a random glitch though, this was the moment Nicholas Cantu took over as the voice of Gumball, and Terrell Ransom Jr. also stepped in as Darwin. It makes use of the situation, instead of quietly switching the characters' voices behind the scenes. Nicholas Cantu voiced Gumball all the way up until the very last episode in season 6 titled The Inquisition, but Gumball wasn't his first role either. Since at just 12 years old, he got his start in the industry with a voice appearance as Diego in a 2016 episode of Dora and Friends. Not long after, he made a quick leap into leading roles, voicing Rowan Freemaker in LEGO Star Wars The Freemaker Adventures. For a 12-year-old, this was a pretty good start to begin his acting career. However, it wasn't until his role as Gumball where he found massive success. He was able to take Jacob's place as the voice of Gumball and improve upon it in many ways. And one of these was with his singing. One of the things that The Amazing World of Gumball was well known for before this was his songs. One of the most popular songs being Be Your Own You from the Copycats.
Be your own you, be your own you. Don't do what I do, just be your own you.
And one of Nicholas Cantu's best music performances in the show, easily, hands down, has to be Goodbye.
Goodbye. My face will be too mangled to identify.
This performance alone just shows how much emotion and depth he really brought to Gumball. Not just through his dialogue, but through music too. And honestly, while all the voice actors who've played Gumball brought something unique to the table, Nicholas's performance in Goodbye really makes him stand out as the best singer to ever voice the character. Now, if you feel like you've heard of Nicholas Cantu before, even outside of Gumball, you probably have. He used to be a YouTuber. He made videos under the name Junkie Janker and did a bit of everything. Vlogs, Q&A, commentary, you name it. He also played in a bunch of Minecraft Monday events with popular YouTubers such as Technoblade, Mr. Beast, James Charles, and so much more. However, his YouTube career would come to an end in 2023 when he got into drama with another popular Minecraft YouTuber, Dream. However, since then he's made a comeback and has a new YouTube channel called The Cantu Network. Nicholas Cantu ended up staying the voice of Gumball until season 6, where the series ended on a cliffhanger. There is a season 7 in the works, with a new trailer that just came out called The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball. But I don't think Nicholas Cantu is going to continue his role of Gumball for a multitude of reasons, with one of them being that his voice has gotten a lot deeper, and the last season was in 2019, nearly 7 years ago, and now he's a full-grown adult. Unless we get an Adult Swim version of Gumball, I doubt he'll continue to play the character. And although this is where a lot of people think it ends, there's actually one more major change to his voice, which might hint a lot about where Gumball will end up in the coming years. Even though there hasn't been much information about the new season of Gumball, there have been several spin-off series of Gumball somewhat recently, in which Gumball was voiced by a completely new guy named Duke Cutler. Duke voices Gumball in the Gumball Chronicles, which is a spin-off series that used clips from older episodes, but added new animation and new voice acting. He voiced Gumball in newer scenes.
Cool. For a second there, I worried you thought it was a bad idea.
But the show didn't redo lines for older voice actors, so you get a piece of each voice actor who played Gumball in this series. Duke's portrayal of Gumball sounds similar to his past voices, while still sounding slightly different. Even though Duke doesn't have the most experience with voice acting, his performance on Gumball Chronicles does show that he can voice act and play the role well. But now, let's move on and talk about the entire evolution of Gumball. The amazing world of Gumball has evolved from an experiment to a multi-million-dollar show in just 14 years. From new character designs to the creator now hating his own show, we're gonna go from the beginning all the way to now to understand exactly how we got here. The amazing world of Gumball officially premiered on May 9th, 2011, but the idea actually goes all the way back to 2008. At the time, it was a rough concept with the working title Gumball, and while the characters were still coming together, what really stood out was the animation. It mixed 2D styles and 3D styles with real-world images. A strange combo at the time, but one that ended up giving the show its signature look. But the mix of styles didn't just apply to the backgrounds, it extended to the characters themselves. Gumball had his blue look, but was noticeably less polished, which they probably did on purpose. His head was more rectangular in shape, and his enormous eyes took up the majority of his face. In the even earlier designs of Gumball, the blue cat we all know and love today wasn't even planned to exist. Originally, he was gonna be a blue dog, but as the character developed, they realized his personality, unlucky but still cheerful, would better fit a cat, specifically a black cat. However, the black cat idea was still too limiting for the kinds of stories they wanted to tell, so the team ended up going back to the drawing board, trying to find something that would stand out even more. And that's when they got an idea. They decided to make him blue because it wasn't a color you'd typically see on cats, and it gave off this 70s, 80s Japanese mascot vibe. That one change ended up defining Gumball forever, making the blue cat instantly recognizable all around the world. But Gumball wasn't the only character to go through a transformation. Darwin's story is just as personal and unique. He was inspired by Ben Bocquelet, the showmaker's real-life friend Paul, who spent so much time with the family that they were basically like his adoptive parents to him. That experience shaped Darwin's role on the show, not as just Gumball's best friend, but as someone who was brought into the Watterson family and loved like one of their own. And just like his backstory, Darwin's design went through some changes too. His overall look was recognizable, but those early versions were definitely a bit different. His eyes were oversized, and his head looked way too big for his body. And maybe the biggest challenge was he was originally animated in 3D instead of 2D. But it wasn't just the animation that was changed in the pilot. The voices were completely different too.
Ready? Ready! Ready for what?
Gumball was still in its very early stages, but it was clearly on the path to something special. And in 2011, we finally got to see the potential come to life when the first episode premiered in the US, called the DVD. Right from the start, the amazing world of Gumball stood out with its wild mix of animation styles, real-world photography for backgrounds, characters, and so much more. Season 1 kicked off with 36 episodes and gave us a real look at the Watterson family and their totally chaotic lives in Elmore. Alongside Gumball and Darwin, we met Richard, Nicole, and Anais. People were hooked fast, and it didn't take long for Gumball to become one of Cartoon Network's most popular shows. Behind the scenes, the show would always be changing, especially when it comes to the voice actors. In the beginning, Logan Grove and Kwesi Bocquelet took over the new voices of Gumball and Darwin, and they showed that they were perfect picks to bring Gumball and Darwin to life. But as time went on, things would change in ways no one saw coming. Changes that would eventually shape the future of the show in unexpected ways. Before long, the amazing world of Gumball was already making waves. In 2011, just after debuting, it won the British Academy Children's Award for Animation. The first episode pulled in 2.12 million viewers in the US, which really just shows how quickly the show started catching on. Critics also took notice. These early wins set the stage for Gumball to become a standout show in animation. But after a successful debut season, Gumball came back with even more energy and creativity in season 2. Premiering on August 7th, 2012, the new season continued what made it a hit. Some major changes this year included updates to Gumball and Darwin's appearances. While they still had the same iconic designs we all know and love, a few subtle changes were made, such as fading the shadow on Darwin's body, which was mistaken a lot for clothes, and rounding out both Darwin and Gumball's eyes. This would also be the case with the rest of the Watterson family to match Gumball and Darwin. In this year, Logan Grove, Gumball's voice actor, would go on to win an Annie Award for the best voice acting in an animated TV production, a recognition that showcased his incredible talent and dedication that he put into bringing Gumball to life.
You're a complete nutcase, man! I don't want to fight you anymore!
Behind the scenes though, there were a few things that were starting to unravel. The actors behind Gumball and Darwin were facing a growing problem that, while going unnoticed by many, would only intensify over the next few years. Season 3 of The Amazing World of Gumball kicked off on June 5th, 2014 with a major change. The voices of Gumball and Darwin, Logan Grove and Kwesi Bocquelet, who had voiced the duo since Season 1, stepped away as their voices naturally matured. By the end of Season 2, it was clear that their voices were getting deeper, and they were starting to outgrow their roles. If you compare Seasons 1 and 2, you can hear a huge difference. So, in the episode The Kids, Gumball's voice actor was switched out to Jacob Hopkins, and Darwin's voice actor was switched out to Terrell Ransom Jr. Season 3 also marked the final update for the Watersons family designs. They got rounder eyes and a slight visual upgrade, but from this point on, their appearances remained mostly the same. By 2015, The Amazing World of Gumball had really found its place, mixing good writing with a visually appealing show that really stood out to fans. And Season 4, which came out this year, was proof of that. With a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and consistently strong fan feedback, it was clear the show wasn't slowing down anytime soon. Every episode continued to push the boundaries. Around this time, fans couldn't help but speculate about the possibility of a Gumball movie. It wasn't confirmed, but the idea started to slowly become more talked about. As Gumball's fanbase grew, the idea of a movie wasn't totally out of the question anymore. It started to feel like a real possibility. And in October of this year, Ben Bocquelet dropped a casual comment that would cause years of excitement. In an interview with The Times, a popular British news company, Ben Bocquelet mentioned that there was interest in making a Gumball movie. It wasn't an official announcement, but that one comment would set the fanbase on fire, turning the idea of a Gumball movie from a mere wish to something that's entirely possible. If only they knew the challenges behind the scenes, issues, delays, and obstacles that would hold up the movie for years. But before any of that came to light, Season 5 of Gumball dropped in 2016, keeping fans occupied while they anxiously waited for news on the movie. But not even a week after Season 5 of Gumball dropped, the creator, Ben Bocquelet, announced that Season 6 would be his last season he'd work on. Ben had been with The Amazing World of Gumball from the start, so his announcement marked a major turning point for The Amazing World of Gumball. With him gone, the question came, could the show continue without the man who created it all? The creative direction would now fall into new hands, and that shift could change everything. I wonder what the show would look like without Ben. I'm glad it was his choice. That means we're definitely gonna get a whole, complete, satisfying run. Fans were split over Ben Bocquelet's departure after Season 6. Some were concerned about how Gumball would continue without its creator. On the flip side, others respected his decisions and were hopeful for the future, knowing that it was his choice to step away. At first, Ben's announcement had fans thinking that Season 6 would mark the end of the series. Also, you know, I'm the one leaving after Season 6, but it's not necessarily the end of The Amazing World of Gumball. But then, he stepped in to clear things up, essentially saying, hey, I'm the one leaving, but the show isn't. However, as time went on, the idea that Season 6 might actually be the final chapter began to feel more real. While Ben was already saying his final goodbyes early, new cast members were being welcomed to the show. By this point in Season 5, Jacob Hopkins and Terrell Ransom Jr. had been voicing Gumball and Darwin since Season 3, but just like the original actors before them, they started to get too old for their roles. So the show brought in new voice actors, and Cantu started voicing Gumball, and Donielle Hansley Jr. started voicing Darwin. After the episode The Copycats, they quickly settled into their roles, picking up right where the previous actors left off. And over the next year, they would work on the show behind the scenes, getting ready for the next season that was about to come. Season 6 of Gumball premiered in 2018, introducing another change in the voice cast. While Cantu continued voicing Gumball, Donielle Jr. was replaced by Christian J. Simon as Darwin. This transition occurred in the episode The Anybody, where Darwin's voice noticeably shifted after clearing his throat, and it happened so quickly that you probably wouldn't even notice unless you're a really big fan.
I do not sound like that. Try clearing your throat. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's better.
Even with the voice change, the show kept doing what it did best. Then, in 2018, news came out that Season 6 would be the last, with also more news about the Gumball movie. Season 6 is confirmed to be the final season. The show will end with 240 episodes, a movie script is being written, but we just don't know if a movie will actually be made just yet. And Ben retweeted this, meaning it wasn't a joke. Well, we finally got an update on the movie. At the same time, Gumball seemed to finally be wrapping up. Yo, I like deadass wanna cry. Please don't let the show end. Gumball is my favorite. Please, no! We were finally getting to the movie we'd all been waiting for, but at what cost? The end of Gumball meant saying goodbye to the world that we've all grown to love. With fans knowing that season 6 would be the last, there was nothing else to do but wait for that final episode. But when it came, it didn't conclude anything, and just made us question even more what was happening. Season 6 wrapped up in June 19th with a real cliffhanger, with Rob falling into the void after warning about a certain danger that's coming. The Amazing World of Gumball series finale wasn't just disappointing, it was depressing. I used to hate it, but since the movie got announced, I really enjoyed the episode. As expected, season 6 divided the entire fan base. Some were disappointed, feeling it could have wrapped things up better, while others loved it and eagerly hoped it would set the stage for something bigger, like the movie. In the end, opinions were split and the fan base debated it for months, and even still to this day. While we waited for what was to come next, the following years would give us some content to pass the time. In 2019, we got an unexpected treat with Darwin's Yearbook, a 6-episode miniseries that dropped in December 2019. This time, the spotlight shifted away from Gumball and onto his best friend and adoptive brother, Darwin. The series follows Darwin as he works on the Elmore Junior High Yearbook, deciding who wins the title of best person ever. Although it was only 6 episodes, and mostly recycled clips from the Gumball episodes, it still included some fresh moments that kept fans entertained while they waited for the finale of season 6 to be answered. After the release of Darwin's Yearbook, fans were treated to another mini-series called the Gumball Chronicles, which followed a similar format. This new series aired in 2020, which was almost a year after Darwin's Yearbook ended. This yet again was another trip down memory lane, giving us short episodes that revisited some of the most memorable moments from the Amazing World of Gumball, with new stuff sprinkled in between. While these miniseries were a fun distraction, they also left fans eager to see the next big step in the Gumball universe. Get it? That's the name of the channel. Subscribe. Anyways, and on whether or not that would finally bring the long-awaited movie to life, almost a year later, we finally got some promising updates about the movie. On September 21st, 2021, fans were finally treated with some exciting news. HBO Max and Cartoon Network officially greenlit The Amazing World of Gumball, the series, alongside a full-length, feature-length film Gumball movie. It seemed that the long-awaited movie was finally moving forward, and the future of Gumball looked even brighter than ever. And we were also gonna get this new series, separated from the actual Gumball show. For many, this was the moment they'd been hoping for. A return to Elmore on a much bigger scale. The movie, alongside the new series, promised everything that fans had been waiting for, and it seemed like the long wait was finally over. But things would soon take a turn for the worse the very next year. In August of 2022, Warner Bros. Merged with Discovery, and things started to get pretty messy. At first, it seemed like it could be a good change for viewers, but it turned out to be the complete opposite. With this new merge came the unfortunate cancellation of several fan favorite shows and movies from HBO Max's lineup, and sadly, Gumball got caught in the crossfire. Despite the green light we had received less than a year earlier, the movie we'd all been waiting for, alongside the new series, was put on hold, with no signs of it ever becoming a thing. We were essentially just left hanging, unsure of what would happen to the movie and the new series we'd all been so excited about. While all hope seems lost, behind the scenes, Gumball wasn't completely gone. In the same year, some crew members updated their LinkedIn profiles, hinting that they were still working on Gumball-related projects. Studios like Bobby Pills and Lighting VFX also appeared linked in the project, suggesting that, despite HBO Max's cuts, production was still quietly happening behind the scenes. With no updates for nearly 2 years, we were left to speculate about what was coming next. Then, just when it seemed like the wait would never end, we finally got the news we'd all been hoping for. On May 19th, 2025, Hulu posted a trailer to their YouTube channel called The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball, which is now airing as a Hulu-exclusive spin-off version of the show like originally intended. Although basically, this is just going to be season 7 of Gumball, with the same personality of the characters and locations in the show. And just very recently, as of recording this video, The Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball just fully released on Hulu. And it's insane! From AI companions to an app that turns people into zombies, it really feels like Gumball is covering more current events than ever. And in this new show, we also get introduced to new voice actors for the characters. Elkio Theo and Hero Hunter will be the new voices for Gumball and Darwin Watterson in the new Amazing World of Gumball series. And in the show, these voices sound great.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah. We're never eating truffle burger for the rest of our life.
But now that we've gone over all of these changes to Gumball, let's take a deep dive and look into why the show never got bad. Well, most shows lose their charm over time. The Amazing World of Gumball defied the odds of falling off after the early seasons. Instead, as time went on, Gumball just kept getting better and better, never losing what made it so good in the first place. So what kept Gumball from following the typical downward trend of other shows, like SpongeBob or Family Guy? Well, today we're gonna look at the 6 main reasons why Gumball never got bad, and how it pulled off one of the most remarkable runs in cartoon history. One of the biggest reasons for Gumball's success has to be its characters. Every great show has a cast that either makes it or breaks it, and in Gumball's case, the characters are a huge part of what makes it so loved. Sure, there are a few characters that are hated for being annoying or downright evil, but the main cast of 5 in the Watterson family more than makes up for it. Gumball is the main troublemaker. He turns simple things into total chaos, but that's what makes him so fun. Darwin is his best friend and brother who is always kind and caring, always there to help. Anais is the youngest and super smart, but she can still act like a kid sometimes. Nicole is the strong and caring mom who keeps everyone in line, and Richard is the silly dad who acts like a complete idiot. There's even a time that Richard reviewed a calculator like it was a literal video game. This clip is literally peak Gumball. I don't care what you say.
Okay, hi, this week I'm reviewing this game I found was part of my computer. Okay, so I'm just loading up the game now. Okay, it's called Calculator.
However, the Amazing World of Gumball is much more than just the Wattersons. Some of the most bizarre characters you'll ever see in a cartoon will be found throughout the town of Elmore. Every character in Elmore is totally weird in their own way, but that's what makes Gumball, you know, Gumball. I mean, you got a talking banana, a talking chin, a giant T-Rex, and many more odd characters in the world of Gumball. All of them play a role in the show, either helping Gumball or doing the complete opposite. You have Penny, who is always there to support Gumball, and then there's Tobias, who usually appears as a friend of Gumball, but can also play an antagonist role at times. With such a weird mix of characters, the show never feels like it's repeating itself. There's always something new, either an unexpected interaction or a storyline featuring all kinds of different personalities. That's a big reason why the Amazing World of Gumball never gets old. They could have just stuck to the usual formula like most other shows, focusing on mainly the family and a few main characters, but instead they took minor characters and actually gave them the chance to star in full episodes. And we see this in multiple episodes, such as the shippening, using Sarah's weird fanfiction to ship characters in Elmore. Or take the episode The Extras, where background characters finally get the spotlight, showing just how much depth and personality even the smallest roles can have. Every character got their time to shine, and that's what makes Elmore feel so alive. But speaking of characters, one of the big reasons Gumball never lost its charm is because of how much the characters actually grow. The Amazing World of Gumball has always been praised for its jokes or animation, but something that's totally overlooked is the character development. The problem with most shows is that the main character can't evolve, and this often makes the series feel formulaic. When the main character remains the same from episode to episode, there's no real growth or change, and because of this, the audience may lose interest because there's nothing new to explore. I mean, if I had a favorite character and they don't show any growth throughout the series, I would eventually dislike the show for not trying to improve it over time. However, Gumball avoids this problem by letting its characters, particularly Gumball, develop throughout the series. For example, Gumball starts off as kind of the loser and is just the main punching bag of most episodes. But as the series goes on, Gumball starts to gain more confidence and mature a bit, even going as far as gaining a deeper voice. He's not the punching bag anymore, and we don't see him get bullied like he used to. He goes from being this awkward troublemaker to some people genuinely liking to hang out with him. That's why a lot of fans love his character. He's not just a one-dimensional troublemaker, he's a complex character who learns, adapts, and grows throughout the series. But it's not just about Gumball growing. Darwin, Anais, Nicole, and even Richard have their own stories of development too. Each of them goes through their own challenges and growth, which keeps the audience engaged and invested in their journeys as much as Gumball's. shows. However, as much as the characters play a huge role in Gumball, the next reason why Gumball is so loved is for its great animation. In season 1, the animation wasn't anything too crazy or next level, but after the show started experimenting with different styles and techniques, it really showed how creatively they can use different animation to tell a story. Originally, the animation was handled by a company called Studio Soy, which gave the first season a more traditional yet charmingly simple look. But as the show continued, so did its visuals. By the time the later seasons rolled around, Gumball's animation was taken over completely by Bulldog Studios, known for pushing boundaries in animation. This shift allowed the show to experiment with 2D, 3D, and live action, creating these visuals that helped define Gumball and its unique style. The change in animation really highlighted the show's evolution, and the difference in quality is clear. The bold approach to animation became one of Gumball's defining features, making it stand out not just as a funny show, but one that was visually dynamic and ever evolving. While the main characters like Gumball and Darwin are traditionally rendered in 2D, they also appear in multiple different animation styles with no limits. I think a great example of this is in the episode The Fury, in which the creators use an anime art style to show Nicole and Yuki's rivalry. Yeah, this episode was intense. The budget must have gone way over what they planned. The creators don't limit themselves to just one animation style, but instead embrace multiple styles. Even with all the challenge that comes with blending them into the show, this approach not only keeps the series visually fresh, but also adds a layer of depth and creativity that audiences love. By mixing all kinds of animation styles, the show keeps things exciting and unpredictable. It's the kind of thing that grabs your attention, whether you're a kid or an adult. This thoughtful integration of different animation techniques not only sets Gumball apart from other animated series, but also shows how the animation can be used in all kinds of creative ways to tell a story. But another thing that makes Gumball so good is the voice actors. Instead of going down the usual route of hiring professional adult voice actors, the creators decided to cast real kids to voice the main characters. I mean, not to say the kids were completely inexperienced, they were also voice actors, but they were obviously still very young. Gumball has been voiced by Nicholas Cantu, Jacob Hopkins, and Logan Grove over the years, and each of them brought that perfect mix of mischief and charm that makes him so lovable. You can almost hear the energy and emotion in their voices, which makes Gumball sound just like a real kid. In this interview about auditioning for Gumball, apparently Jacob didn't even try to voice Gumball, because that was just his natural voice at the time.
I sounded a lot like him, and when he yelled, when I yell, I have like a raspiness just like him.
Which means if you were to meet him in person, you would basically meet Gumball in real life. But it wasn't just Gumball who got such great voice acting. Darwin's voice is just as important. Real kids were casted to voice both Gumball and Darwin. The voices behind our favorite talking fish are Donielle Hansley Jr, Terrell Ransom Jr, Kwesi Bocquelet, and Christian J. Simon. Each of these actors brought their own special touch to Darwin, giving him that kind, genuine voice we all love. Not only did these kids have talent in voice acting, but their singing was another big factor. When I tell you these kids could sing, they could sing.
Your smile answers my silent scream. Your photo on the screen. Goodbye. My face will be too mangled to identify.
You could say their singing is amazing. Anyways, you can totally see that the voice actors for Gumball and Darwin weren't just voicing Gumball and Darwin. They were Gumball and Darwin. That kind of identity had a huge effect, and it's the reason why Gumball never really fell off. What could have been a gigantic roadblock, casting new voice actors, turned out to be something the show did really fun in a creative way. They leaned into it, used it for jokes, songs, and even made whole episodes like The Kids about changing voice actors. Although I only talked about Gumball and Darwin, the voice acting in The Amazing World of Gumball goes far beyond just those two. Everyone behind the voices of the show played their part and brought the entire world to life. But of course, voice acting is only half of what it takes to make Gumball such an incredible show. As crucial as it is to have someone good voicing Gumball and Darwin, the jokes and story in the episodes wouldn't hit nearly as hard without the writing. Every cartoon has its own sense of humor. Family Guy with those random cutaway gags, and South Park with that really dark and edgy humor. Each show has their own way to tell jokes and stories, and Gumball is one that doesn't miss. The humor in Gumball can be enjoyed by anyone. If you're an innocent kid, you wouldn't even realize some of the dark jokes in the show. Some of Gumball's best jokes are the ones you wouldn't notice the first time around. When you're a kid, you don't notice these things at first, but then when you watch them again when you're older, you're suddenly catching all these references and dark jokes that totally went over your head before. No matter how old you are, you'll never really outgrow Gumball. You'll just start to see more of what makes it brilliant. One of the coolest things about the show is how self-aware it is. The show knows it's a cartoon and leans into that in the funniest ways possible. Like in the tape where the characters mess with their own timeline using a remote control, skipping ahead and rewinding like it's totally normal. Or in the Copycats where they roast a Chinese ripoff of Gumball.
Be your own you.
Try something new.
Find your own things to do. Get in your stupid car and don't come back.
They'll switch up the animation mid-scene, break the fourth wall out of nowhere, and even joke about Cartoon Network itself, all without feeling out of place. In pretty much any other show, that kind of stuff would feel like it's trying way too hard, as it's the only joke they could come up with. But in Gumball, it just somehow works. I guess it's because in the world of Gumball, it's not really forced upon you. The writing is smart and weird in the best way, but it never feels like it's trying to prove anything. You can tell that the writers are just having fun with it, throwing out the wildest ideas and seeing how far they can push the joke without breaking the show. And honestly, that's what makes Gumball so great. It feels like the writers know what Gumball is, but don't want to push it any further than it needs to go. They let the show be weird, self-aware, and chaotic without overdoing it and making it feel forced. And the final reason why Gumball never got bad is because of its strong community. From fans to the creators, the show has always been a dedicated group of people who appreciate its unique blend of creativity. The fan base is incredibly passionate through art, memes, and discussions, which keeps the spirit of the series alive even after the last season aired in 2019. The support for Gumball has never stopped, and seems to keep going from here. There is a ton of content out there. Whether it's deep dives into the show's themes, fan art, or remixes, people are constantly keeping the conversation going. Heck, even here on this channel, we love Gumball, and that's why I make videos about it. And if it wasn't for your guys' support, I wouldn't be able to talk about Gumball as much as I want to. So, thank you. Because fans still support the show, a spin-off, season 7, and even a movie have been in the works. The fact that fans are still so interested in the show just shows how much the characters and stories really connect people. Gumball isn't just another show that aired. It became a part of pop culture that will probably be loved for years to come. The bond between the show and its community is something special, going beyond the show itself. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because I'll be here to cover everything Gumball related coming this year and much more.